Welcome back, everybody. What you're listening to there is Midnight Messiah by Dream Theater off of Parasomnia, which I have been utterly obsessed with. So let's take a look at this from a harmonic perspective. First and foremost, this song is in a wacky tuning, but ultimately the intervals used are in standard formation. So I'm going to be referring to the notes and the chords used from the perspective of standard, because that will be the most easily digestible for the most people possible. So that's how we're going to approach this. But yes, it's in a strange tuning. All right, starting off with that intro. What that intro basically is it's essentially a theme, and that theme, if you listen, you'll notice that the first note played is always different. So here we go. So the first note of the phrase is always a different note. It's a different bass note. We'll call it a bass note. And then the 5 notes that go after it are all the same. So it's a theme that's repeated, but it gains movement and life through the changing of its first note, its bass note. Okay, so let's go through what exactly are these notes and what are they creating. All right, we are essentially creating kind of like the outline of an E minor chord. So there's some E's and some G's, which is the minor third. There's also occasionally some B's. The bass notes are changing from essentially E to B flat, which would be the tritone. We're essentially in E minor here. And again, different tuning. I'm talking about it in standard, so just don't get confused. Think of this as simple as possible. So we're in E minor, essentially. We've got the E as the 1, the B as the 5, we have the B flat as the tritone, the A as the 4, there's a C involved in there at some point, that's the 6. And then I believe that's it for this section. So I'm just going to go through, and as we play through this, I'm going to call out the bass notes so you can hear the change, okay? E, B, B flat, A, E, C, B flat, B, E. All right? Now, as this gets toward the end, they're going to throw in right here. They throw in a C sharp as the bass note, which has not yet been played. It's like the leading tone into the next note that's played, which is D. And essentially those two sections, they're kind of outlining like an A7 to an A7 sus. That's what I'm getting from those notes. And then from there we abruptly shift into this new section, which goes like this. Now, so this is like classic John Petrucci, right? John Petrucci is the master of intervallic riff writing. And what I mean by that is he starts off with just a simple power chord, and then he'll throw in like a sharp 5 in the next phrase and a flat 5 in the phrase after that, and then he'll do an inverted something or other. And all the while he's doing this, he's riding on bass notes that are essentially either staying the same throughout all the phrases or moving with the phrase. So as you can see on screen, we've got the first power chord is essentially a very wide stretched E minor. That would be this one. And then the next one is a variation of that. It's more of like an E5. So the first one had the 3rd, this one has the 5th. And then the next one is the tritone. It's the root flat 5th. And then the one we're ending on here is essentially E with A, which is a perfect 4th. So, and then it repeats, and then in the next section of that, we're essentially going to outline an E minor chord again, and then we're going to outline a C major chord, which is like the 6th chord in E minor, and then we're going to do the tritone again with the B flat, followed by the perfect fifth. So in the first phrase, they do the perfect fifth and then the tritone. And now in this back end of the whole cycle, they're doing tritone and then perfect fifth. So very symmetrical in their ideas. Let's just hear that section starting off with the first phrase. Notice how Portnoy changed the feel. All the other instruments stayed the same, but Portnoy changed the feel, and that's something I'm going to get into in the future with more rhythmic stuff, and I'm eventually going to do like an ode to Portnoy eventually. There's never enough time to do this YouTube thing, but he changes the shape of the music by changing the beat. And it works, and it actually makes it better, and the rest of the band just continues in doing what they're doing. That's like that's a perfect example of why Dream Theater is amazing. Why Mike Portnoy is so integral to the Dream Theater sound. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the chords. So at the end of this cycle, we end up with this. And that part is essentially like a C major to a C sharp minor, so we're kind of moving up chromatically, and then the last part essentially gives us like an E7 inverted in a way. And again, these are all implied harmonies because we're dealing with two notes. So I'm looking at the two notes and I'm going, which one's the root, and then how does the other one fit in? If it's E and D, we're going E is the root, D is the 7. If it's C and E, we're going to go C is the root, E, and we'll call it like a C major. You could also flip it around. I mean, when you're dealing with a band like this, it really doesn't matter, but it is fun to break the stuff down. Let's check out the next section right here. All right, continuing on with Midnight Messiah. All right, so the next section starts with a completely different part of the guitar with a completely different configuration of notes. The rhythm is essentially the same. But what's really interesting that you'll see is that we're essentially doing what we just did. We're just doing it in a different place in a slightly changed way. So let's hear it first. We're going to come out of the section we just left into the new section. So here's the end, and now we begin. So, as you guys can hear, the rhythm is essentially the same. The notes are pretty much the same. The theme of an ever-changing bass note is also present. So let's go through this. We've got, at the beginning, right, we got this one. So that's an E minor, and then we have E minor with a B in the bass, followed by E minor with a B flat in the bass. There's your tritone relationship. Then we have this E over A. At the end of that passage, they throw in an F sharp, which is really cool. That's the 2 in E minor. And then we repeat. So here's the repetition of the E minor section. Now right there, we're up to E minor over C. And then we have an E minor over B flat. And then the last section is almost like an E minor add 9. It has that F sharp again. And then it's going to continue. So they kind of recycled the theme and the idea, but they found a new way to deliver it. Really cool stuff. This next section that's got As I Am vibes, right? Anyone disagree with that? I don't think you're going to disagree with that. So that is all open chugs on the E string, followed by D, which is the 7, and then A. So it's kind of like we're doing the E as the 1, up to the 7, down to the A as the 4. We're doing that, and then they're bringing it up to the tritone again. So let's listen. Here's from E. Here's E. Now here's B flat, B flat, B flat, back to E, B flat, B flat. So they've essentially built this whole section around the idea that they're going to be rooted on the root E for the first measure, and then the couple phrases that follow are up a tritone in B flat, and that is like, you know, the basis for As I Am as well. The tritone is everything. And then we actually do, in that last measure before we repeat, which is here, you have that little tail. That tail is doing, so we're doing B flat to E for the tritone, and then we're going up to E, down to B flat, and then up to B. So we're resolving the B flat to the B before we run right back into the E. So that makes sense because B is the 5 of E. So nice 5-to-1 resolution. I think that's all I'm going to bother with. I think this video has been long enough. It looks like they're going to continue dancing with this idea for the rest of the song. And why not? That's what Dream Theater does, and that's what makes them great. So if anybody has found this video informative, entertaining, or even if you're still here, thank you. Wow, impressed. Leave a comment below letting me know you're still here. Hit the like button on your way out because it is free, guys. It's absolutely free, and it can't hurt you. So if you're this far in, please help me out. Give the algorithm a reason to acknowledge my existence, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching.